Hey there, LEGO fans, and welcome back. Alex here. For those who have collected LEGO for any amount of time, you will no doubt have noticed that the LEGO Group has consistently produced LEGO train sets ever since they released their first LEGO train set back in 1965. Now, it didn't take long for the LEGO Group to come up with a train motor. The very next year, LEGO added a 4.5-volt motor, which allowed trains to move along blue-colored rails and white sleepers. The trains themselves were built with very bright colors and had a vague similarity to real trains. A short time later, in 1969, LEGO introduced the 12-volt motor. It ran alongside the 4.5-volt motor for many years. The years from 1966 to 1979 are known as the blue era because of the blue-colored rails. The 4.5-volt motor lasted a whopping 20 years, ending in 1986, while the 12-volt motor lasted 21 years, from 1969 to 1990. In 1980, LEGO also moved on from the previously mentioned blue era to the gray era, when they ditched the blue-colored rails for gray ones. These years saw some impressive evolution. Trains began to look more and more like modern trains. We also began seeing accessory sets such as switch tracks as well as light signals. There were even level crossing sets. But then LEGO wiped the slate clean when, in 1991, they introduced the 9-volt train motor. This sleeker and more modern design allowed for better details and aesthetics. Along with it came a better-looking track system of molded dark gray rail and tie assemblies with metal conducting rails. This era of trains was my favorite because it didn't rely on batteries. It was powered by the electricity traveling through the metal rails controlled by a speed regulator, which is plugged into the wall. Assuming you've paid your electric bill, these trains can run all day and not die. This era also produced some of my favorite trains, including the Metroliner. The modern 9-volt motor went away in 2007 when LEGO decided to go back to batteries. This meant a heavy battery pack was needed on board the train to power the motor, as well as an awkward IR receiver and a clumsy remote. Now, don't get me wrong, I like power functions, I think they have their place, but this, in my opinion, was about when LEGO got into a bit of a rut with trains. Despite the constant changes in how to power the trains, LEGO began going backwards in their approach to design. Each year, a new passenger and freight train were produced that were always the same boring formula. The passenger train suffered from this the most, as year after year, the same design was used. LEGO would just change the color and some of the accessories that came with it in hopes it would distract us from what they were really doing, and that is, recycling the same design over and over. Now, I will admit, I have loved the occasional offshoot train engines such as the Emerald Knight. These trains were always a breath of fresh air, but they never came with any form of power or track. But the biggest miss for me, and I think for many other LEGO train enthusiasts, is that despite having nearly 60 years of trains, we have not seen the LEGO train evolve into anything larger than a 6-stud wide platform. And this is really the point I want to make here. You see, LEGO continues to increase the size of pretty much everything. Pirate ships, though few and far between, are bigger than their predecessors from the 80s and 90s. LEGO city buildings are now sold as skyscrapers. That's a far cry from what we saw in the city sets from the 1990s. And many of you likely saw my video on LEGO car sizes more than doubling in a relatively short amount of time. So what do I think LEGO should do? It's a tough call because scale is a hard thing to be consistent with, especially due to LEGO coming out with a standardized minifigure back in 1978. If a LEGO train were to be built to scale, it would need to be maybe at least 16 studs wide. The train would have a really hard time fitting into any city, not to mention the train tracks would need to be much wider. But I don't think LEGO train fans expect this. See, even if LEGO came out with an 8-stud wide train, it would have a great reception with fans. I have seen many great train mocks in shows that really push the boundaries of what's possible for LEGO trains. Now, I realize that many of these trains would have a hard time fitting in some LEGO cities. Turns are tight and can catch on things easily, but I say let the fans worry about that. LEGO could easily make a train that is meant for display. They already did this with the recent Crocodile engine with the display stand. So why not double the size and let the consumer decide if it goes on the shelf or goes in the city? Now, I know this is easier said than done, but nearly every product line LEGO has produced has seen an evolution of size. So why not the train? In a day where we are getting 8-stud wide sports cars that should be dwarfed by any of these modern day train sets, it just makes sense to increase the train size as well. LEGO trains have a huge following. There are massive LEGO train groups all around the world, and I know that they would love to see some larger trains that offer greater details. Anyway, these are my thoughts on the LEGO train. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Should LEGO up the size, or are they right in keeping them to 6 studs wide? As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye-bye.